Shelba must be destroyed.
Is it a full moon outside? Because we're in the mood for some werewolves. For centuries, these furry nightmares have been creeping into our stories, and honestly, we can't get enough of them. Hollywood sure agrees. There have been tons of werewolf movies over the years. Today, we're sinking our teeth into one particular franchise, The Howling. Kicking off in 1981 with Joe Dante's original film, it was praised for its fresh take on werewolf lore. But let's be real, the sequels, not so much. The quality took a nosedive, and some of them are rough. But don't worry, we've done the hard work for you. We've ranked the Howling movies from best to worst, so you know which ones are worth watching and which ones should stay buried. So grab some silver bullets, because we're about to dive into this howlingly good and sometimes painfully bad franchise. But before we go into our explanation, we have a very small request. If you like our content, please support us by subscribing to our channel. This is a small click for you, but for us it means a lot. Thank you. Let's begin. Number 1. The Howling, 1981. The first movie from the franchise has to be at the top of our list, naturally, because it showed enough promise for others to follow suit. The movie set the gold standard for lycanthrope transformations for years to come and hit the theaters on April 10th, 1981, which was a few months before An American Werewolf in London was released, making 1981 a fantastic year for werewolf horror. Directed by Joe Dante, yes, the guy who got us Gremlins, The Howling was based on Gary Brandner's novel of the same name. And although it took some creative liberties in the making, that arguably made it even better. The cast includes Dee Wallace, who delivers a stellar performance as Karen White. Supporting her are Patrick Macnee, Christopher Stone, Belinda Belaski, and horror legend John Carradine. The screenplay was co-written by John Sayles, who was surely trying to comment on the media and self-help culture of the time. The story follows Karen White, who survives a terrifying encounter with a serial killer named Eddie Quist. After being shaken up by the incident, Karen took some time off as suggested by her therapist and decided to head to a wellness retreat called The Colony for some R&R. But this wasn't your average wellness retreat. It was a werewolf den. As Karen and her husband explored the surroundings, they started noticing some really strange behavior from the locals. As it turns out, they got themselves in a really bad place. Oh, and also, the supposed dead serial killer was very much alive and part of it all. What followed is a tense atmospheric horror, and most notably, Rob Bottin's legendary werewolf transformation scene, perhaps one of the best in horror history. Simply put, The Howling is the best film in the franchise. It has a gripping story, a creepy cult-like atmosphere, and Pina Donagio's haunting synth score. Unlike many of its sequels, this one takes its horror seriously while also adding just the right amount of dark humor. If you're only going to watch one Howling movie, we'd suggest this is the one. Number 2. Howling V, The Rebirth, 1989. At number 2, we've got Howling V, The Rebirth, which came out in 1989. And while most Howling sequels just rehashed the werewolf formula, Howling V actually tried to be different with a more restrained whodunit style. We see a murder mystery play out before actually jumping into the whole werewolf chaos. Directed by Neil Sundstrom, this movie never really got the big screen treatment like the original, and the cast wasn't full of big-ticket names either. They featured Phil Davis, Victoria Catlin, Elizabeth Shee, and William Shockley, all of whom delivered solid performances for what was essentially a low-budget horror flick. I guess what really carried the film was the atmosphere and storytelling. So here's what happened. A group of strangers end up in an ancient castle because they all were somehow invited there. We know that's weird. Now, normally people would refrain from such invitations, but anyway, no one really knew why they were chosen, and when they arrived, they were welcomed by nothing more than cold stone walls and candlelit hallways. And before you know it, people started dropping like flies, one by one, till it was clear that a werewolf was amongst them. Unusual to the Howling formula, this wasn't simply about survival against an attack. It was about figuring out who the hell is a werewolf among us. Think Clue, but with claws. The guests weren't randomly chosen either. They were all connected to the castle's dark past, and one of them was destined to continue the werewolf bloodline. The movie successfully built up some suspense towards the end and kept everyone on their toes for sure. Unlike most of the Howling sequels, we feel this one actually understood the concept of tension. The tension of waiting and the mystery are all key elements in building paranoia and an eerie sense of isolation. The castle setting was fantastic though, with all the snow-covered landscapes adding a creepy factor to the environment. And while the werewolf effects weren't on the level of the original, the storytelling kinda made up for it. If you like slow burn horror by any chance, Howling V is one of the few sequels that's actually worth watching.
Stirba must be destroyed.
Number 3. Howling II, Your Sister is a Werewolf, 1985. This 1985 sequel at number 3 took a sharp left turn into absolute madness. If the first film was all about psychological horror and slow-building tension, Howling II, Your Sister is a Werewolf said, "Forget that. Let's get weird." And weird it got. Directed by Philippe Mora, this sequel starred Reb Brown, Annie McEnroe, and the Christopher Lee. You'd think his presence would elevate the movie, and maybe in some ways it does, but not enough to save it from the bizarre creative choices. The film picked up right after the events of The Howling, following Ben White, Karen's brother from the first movie. After witnessing his sister's shocking transformation on live TV, Ben for sure wanted some answers. That led him to a werewolf hunter named Stefan Krosko, who dropped nothing less than a bombshell on him by revealing that his sister is tied to a werewolf queen named Stirba, which, by the way, was one of the most over-the-top performances in horror history. Ben, along with reporter Jenny Templeton, joined Stefan on a trip to Transylvania because, of course, werewolves live in Transylvania, to stop Stirba from unleashing a full-blown werewolf uprising. What followed was a mix of bizarre werewolf orgies, 80s punk rock, and some truly terrible special effects. Oh, and did I mention the scene in which Christopher Lee is wearing punk sunglasses? Because that happens for whatever reason it happens. To top that, even the werewolf transformations were nowhere near as good as the original. Like seriously, who approved those cheap effects and questionable editing choices? And let's not forget the infamous ending credits scene, which features Sybil Danning ripping off her top on repeat about 17 times. I mean, if that alone doesn't tell you what kind of movie this is, nothing else will. But if you're wondering why Howling II is ranked 3rd, well, it's objectively a mess for sure, but it's also one of the most entertaining disasters you'll ever watch. It has that "it's so bad it's good" energy that makes it impossible to look away. Number 4. Howling VI, The Freaks, 1991. Coming in at number 4, we have Howling VI, The Freaks from 1991. To sum it up, imagine a gothic horror meets carnival sideshow aesthetic. That was their spin on the same old werewolf story, which gave it a unique flavor compared to the rest of the franchise. Directed by Hope Perello, this particular installment starred Brendan Hughes as Ian, Bruce Payne as the sinister carnival owner R.B. Harker, and Antonio Fargas in supporting roles. Now, even though it's a B movie, the narrative is stronger than most of its sibling sequels. And although that doesn't really say much, we'll still take it. Let's get to the plot. Ian is a drifter with a dark secret to hide and is busy wandering a small town in search of work. He somehow ends up catching the attention of a traveling carnival that was run by a shady businessman named Harker. You see, Harker had a knack for collecting unique attractions, and not the ones you would imagine. But Ian was no ordinary guy. He was a werewolf trying to keep his curse under wraps. And if you think he's the only one with special powers, you're wrong again. Harker, on the other hand, was a freaking vampire himself. They did name the movie after some thought. It is a freak show. Harker saw Ian as the perfect addition to his carnival since he had already collected a number of outcasts and supernatural oddities as part of his group. What followed was a slow burn horror tale where Ian was forced into gladiator-style fights while trying to find a way to escape and get revenge on Harker. The film definitely has some strong dramatic moments, especially as Ian bonded with the other members of the freak show who felt just as trapped as he did. We'll save the rest for the climax, but let's just say one of the better moments in the Howling sequels has to be a showdown between a werewolf and a vampire. While it didn't completely redeem the whole franchise, it did try something new, which is why Howling VI is sitting at number 4. The practical effects were hit and miss, but still better than some of its other siblings. It might not be amazing, but it still deserves some credit for being an oddball. 5. Howling IV, the original Nightmare, 1988. In 1988, we got our number 5 on the list, Howling IV, the original Nightmare. This particular sequel tried hard to stick to its roots. We may call it a more faithful adaptation of Gary Brandner's original novel compared to its increasingly bizarre sequels, but was it really better? Nah. We face the same idea versus execution problem here. Directed by John Huff, the movie starred Romy Windsor as Marie, Michael T. Weiss as her husband Richard, and Anthony Hamilton as the mysterious recluse Tom. Despite having a good cast, the film suffered from a painfully slow pace and some really questionable special effects. The plot can be described as a slow burn that barely catches fire. You see, our protagonist, Marie, is a successful novelist who has begun experiencing terrifying visions and hallucinations recently. Concerned for her mental health, she and her husband Richard decided to retreat to a secluded cabin in a small, eerie town. But of course, this town was also hiding a secret. The deeper Marie dug, the more she found out about the town's supernatural underbelly, and her hallucinations were actually only premonitions of the horrors. When you catch yourself in a town crawling with werewolves, you know it's already too late to escape without a fight. Naturally, her husband also got involved, and they had to face whatever was on the plate for them. Perhaps the real problem with the film was that they tried to build a slow-burning dread, but it was just way too damn slow. There were literally long stretches of absolutely nothing, and then when the werewolves finally did appear, their transformation scenes were underwhelming compared to the effects of the first movie. The one thing that's supposed to be the highlight of these movies didn't quite hit the spot. But then, why do we have it on number 5? Because, well, the movie did have noble intentions. It just ended up being forgettable. So we're here to remind you that a movie should deserve some credit for trying to make a more faithful adaptation. Number 6, Howling III, The Marsupials, 1987. So let's kick off the bottom 3. We have the 1987 released Howling III, The Marsupials. This one is a wild movie, but not necessarily in a good way. They took a completely new approach with marsupials instead of your traditional werewolves. The film starred Barry Otto, Imogen Annesley, and Max Fairchild, and was directed by Philippe Mora, the same guy who gave us Howling II, Your Sister is a Werewolf. We'll admit it did have a few ambitious ideas, but it ended up more like a washed-down sci-fi experiment rather than a horror sequel. The movie took us all the way to Australia, where scientists and government officials were busy investigating reports of a special breed of werewolves. Maybe they must have evolved differently in the Australian outback to compete with the kangaroos. At the heart of the story, we see Jerboa, a fugitive woman who ran away to the city in order to escape her oppressive pack of were-marsupials. With the alone girl in a big city trope, she ends up falling for the movie director Donnie, who cast her in this low-budget horror movie. But as their romance blossomed, it was harder for Jerboa to hide her true identity, especially when she gave birth to a baby marsupial in a public hospital. And it's an understatement when we say things got weird. Meanwhile, the government launched a full-scale investigation into the existence of these creatures, leading to an obvious conflict between the two communities. What follows after that feels like a fever dream, with mutant nuns, a Russian werewolf ballerina defecting to Australia, and some really weird dreams. This movie sits at number 6 only because it's unique in an absolutely bonkers kind of a way. The shift from horror to comedy sci-fi hybrid is jarring, and the werewolf transformations are nowhere near as impressive. This might be the one if you're in the mood for something weird and unapologetically Australian. Number 7, The Howling Reborn, 2011. It's time we scrap the bottom of the barrel now. Coming in hard at number 7, we have The Howling Reborn, released in 2011. It tried to be a reboot of the franchise, but let's be real. With Twilight taking charge, it simply feels like a cash grab rather than a proper werewolf horror movie. Directed by Joe Nimziki, the film starred Landon Liboron, Lindsay Shaw, and Ivana Milicevic. This movie seems to have completely ditched the werewolf horror trope. Instead, what we see here is more of a teen romance. I mean, who the hell associates a movie like Howling with high school drama? And if there's high school involved, you can bet there is an awkward teenager waiting for you. We see Will, a socially awkward high school student who's trying to impress the girl of his dreams, Eliana. But, surprise, surprise, he soon discovered he was a werewolf. And not just any werewolf, the descendant of a powerful bloodline of werewolves. As Will struggled with his newfound abilities, he was targeted by a woman named Catherine, who turned out to be his long-lost mother. And, oh yeah, a werewolf queen bent on recruiting him into her pack. Which we kind of understand, because why wouldn't you take forward the family legacy, especially if you're a minority population? This was followed by some messy werewolf politics in high school, packed with forced romance. Now, there were a few action sequences thrown in, but most of the movie felt like a CW show trying to be edgy. If you're still wondering why it's ranked second to last, well, the movie missed the whole point of being in a Howling franchise, or what made that movie great. At this point, people were already pretty sick of the whole teen melodrama and uninspired love story thing. So to be honest, it feels like a leftover script of Twilight. The special effects were meh, the CGI was cheap, and the horror elements were practically non-existent. The only saving grace was that it wasn't the worst movie in the franchise. If you like supernatural romance, maybe this will be on your movie list, even though it doesn't resemble anything like The Howling. Number 8. The Howling, New Moon Rising, 1995. And here we are, folks, rock bottom. If there was ever a Howling movie that deserved to be buried and forgotten, it has to be this one. That being said, it's not just one of the worst in the franchise, it's one of the worst werewolf movies ever. Released in 1995, I'm surprised how anyone even attempted to make another movie with this franchise. But anyway, Clive Turner single-handedly wrote, directed, produced, and ruined this movie with whatever credibility the series had left. The previous films at least attempted to be horror. This one's just a bizarre low-budget mess. It's more of a country western bar hangout than an actual werewolf film. The story, and I use the term very loosely, takes place in a small desert town, where a series of murders are happening. Then Ted Smith shows up and starts hanging around at the local bar where real-life bikers and country musicians play. That's about it. Oh, and sure, there's some little to no werewolf action involved as well, but most of it is just endless scenes of people drinking beer, line dancing, and telling terrible jokes. You may feel with a setting like that, the pace has to feel terribly slow, but there's actually nothing happening for long stretches. It's just locals talking in thick country accents about a mystery in their town. And when we finally do get werewolf scenes, oh boy, the audacity of this man gets beyond our collective imaginations. They've literally just put recycled footage from past Howling movies. That's right, they didn't even bother shooting new werewolf effects. They just cut in clips from the previous films, and I guess hoped that everyone would applaud the creativity. It's so lazy, it's almost impressive. It's barely a movie, so we don't have to reason why it's last on our list. It's cheap, boring, and completely devoid of horror. There, we said it. There is no concept of storytelling or acting, and you can forget about the werewolf. In all honesty, someone just filmed a bunch of random bar scenes and slapped the Howling name on it. If one is ever in the mood for a bad movie, this is it. And if you're a completionist and feel the need to watch every Howling movie, don't say we didn't warn you. We are appalled by the fact that it actually got released. Marvelous verdict. And there you have it, the entire Howling franchise ranked from best to worst. You'll agree that it's been one wild ride. From genre-defining brilliance to, well, whatever New Moon Rising was trying to be. Some of these sequels definitely had potential, but as we know, vision doesn't always align with the output. Because, let's be real, some of these were downright weird and never should have seen the light of day. Do you agree with our ranking? Or do you have a list of your own? Please let us know in the comments below. And if you did enjoy this breakdown, don't forget to like, subscribe, and hit our bell icon for more such rankings. Thanks for keeping up, and until next time, stay safe, and maybe steer clear of any sketchy small-town bars. And if you liked our content, don't forget to leave a like and subscribe to us if you haven't already. Have a good one, and be safe. Thanks, everyone.